Kennen Sie sprechen Deutsch?
Nee. So, guten Tag miteinander.
Verrichter Sterne, Geib nicht laufen, heute verricht, Herrgottsgeib.
Es gibt Leute, die würden alle die Wege nie.
Ich gehe mit dem, und wenn ich auf 0 Franken vom Armenrecht muss mit dem, ich gehe vor mit dem, wo ich will.
Hey, sorry, ich habe gespritzt.
Snijpüti.
Nein, Angst und Geld habe ich keine.
Was unterscheidet Menschen vom Schimpans?
Kappen schauen, Mann. Sie muss da reinschauen, Herz.
Bijassen und Schafsäckchen.
So sieht man wirklich schwarz, nicht nur rot.
Ausländer muss Pass auf in Engelberg, weil Engelberg ist mein Land.
Und was man noch hoffen ist allein, dass sie mich gehen.
Was hast du so erlebt, du hure Banane?
Die berühmten, feinen Mohrenköpfe.
Sali, hoi zusammen und grüezi miteinander. Welcome to the 13th edition of the Swiss-German Initiative. My name is Fabian. Before we begin, as usual, some administrative information. Finally, I got the first person who is willing to get onto the stream and record a session and then we post it on the stream. Now, it only took me 12 tries. But anyway, as always, if you want to get onto the stream as well, please comment in the respective post on our Schweizerdeutsch or get in contact with me directly, and then I will guide you through how to get onto the stream or how to record the session. We have two possibilities. One is Discord and the other one is TeamSpeak. And as a reminder, anonymity is important. So yeah, we can pre-record this and you can cut out every passage you're not comfortable with. And just as a reminder, to please the YouTube algorithm, please leave a like and subscribe. The last time I did the first part of the declensions, and I realized that the recording of the conjugation wasn't as clear as I would have liked. So as soon as I have some time, I will create some shorter videos only for the conjugation. So you can listen to it and repeat it, and I think this really helps in learning the language, and as well it helps with the pronunciation. This time I want to have a look at gender rules in German. But before we do that, let's have a look at the corresponding articles. First, we have the definite articles. It's advised that you learn them with the corresponding noun so that you build up the feel faster. The other reason is that there is no indefinite article or indefinite plural article in Swiss German. So you actually just use the noun. So I read them for short. It's the nominative and the accusative case are actually the same. So masculine, de Mann, die Frau, das Kind, die Frauen. And the dative is Mann, de Frau, Kind und de Kind. And the indefinite cases are ein Mann, or nominative accusative, ein Mann, Frau, es Kind, and the plural Frauen. Excuse me. And the dative, Mann, Frau, Kind, and the plural simply the noun Kind. If you're a dummy like me, and you constantly look up those Latin terms or what those Latin terms mean, because yeah, the last time I learned it in school, I don't know how many years ago. It's, I say, there's an easy Merksatz. So I cannot pronounce this word. Mnemonic sentence. And it would be der Nominativ bringt am Dativ der Akkusativ. Or the dummy version, wer bringt wem was. First the sentence with the definite articles and then with the indefinite articles. So it's der Mann bringt am Kind de Bulle. And the indefinite version would be ein Mann bringt einem Kind ein Bulle. And just to show, how I say, the plural indefinite version, it's Manne bringet Kind Bulle. So there aren't any articles at all. Oh, this got stretched a bit, but anyway. So if you search for a rule why something is in a specific gender, you get something like this. And this works even less in Swiss German because in a lot of cases Swiss German simply removed the endings. So it's way easier in regular German to learn those. Now there are specific endings except ER and E, which are clearly masculine, feminine, or neuter. Now I put the curly D in front of the ER because in earlier episodes I used the asterisk to mark words. But I think this could be a little bit confusing because asterisk is used for terms like in proto-languages like Proto-Germanic or the Indo-European and so on to show that they are actually constructs. So we don't really know that those words, or in other terms, those words were constructed. We don't have a written version of them. And for anyone who's never heard about this, languages such as Indo-European or Proto-Germanic and so forth are not real languages, as we don't have any written word from them. They're completely constructed. And they are constructs where we follow the written language back to a certain rule, with a certain rule, till we get like a common denominator. And so we aren't 100% sure, but it's a really high probability or possibility that a similar word or a similar precursor word actually existed. So it's like, yeah, we don't have it written, but we're pretty sure that something in this, in this manner existed. Anyway, that's the first part. The second part is the categories. If you have certain categories, it's always masculine, feminine, and so forth. And if something is in plural, it's always feminine. And now I think we could actually bump this gender rule up with about 10 or by about 10%. If you simply incorporate gender properties in a way that they are used in tropes in folklore, and sometimes simply as we use the terms today. So, for instance, in English, sometimes a man gets called a dog. And you wouldn't really call a woman a dog, although a dog is neuter. You would call her, wait, never mind. Anyway, but you could see that even in English, where there are no gendered articles, you still have the relation from dog to male. So it's der Hund. Or let's take the snake. And I read it here for short. A snake symbolizes a duality of evil and wisdom, acting as a potent symbol of fertility, rebirth, transformation, and protection, alongside roles as tempters or malicious monsters. They frequently represent the cycle of life, death, and renewal. Yep, that sounds like an archetypal feminine. or like the archetypal feminine. So, Schlange, die Schlange, feminine, and so forth. So, where does this missing, or where are the missing references actually come from? So, why don't we have an ending for everything or a suffix? Because those words change quite a bit. And the ending L is a mixture for all of them. But the reason why they used the suffixes is the same how I would bump up the rule. It's because in their contexts, some stuff was regarded as feminine and some as masculine and neuter and so on. So if you read about it, you'll see that 60% of tools which have an L ending are masculine. So how come a shovel is feminine? Because it's used to split and divide earth. Splitting, forking, earth, and so on, they are all feminine. And this is well why a gobble and a schaufel and even an axe, although it doesn't have the ending L and it's probably a borrowed word, it's feminine because splitting is regarded as feminine. And if we have a look at neuter versions, it's always because they are concepts, i.e. they are not one thing. They're either complete concepts or they are like composites of things. So used as. And in addition to this, they lack the complete feminine or masculine qualities. So it's not assignable either or completely either or. So if I had to put that into a logic, it will look like this. Now, learning it like this wouldn't be really that practical, but I think it could be a good thought support. So Gedankenstütze. So you start with the endings. You simply filter for those endings with the said two exceptions, er for the masculine and e for the feminine. So for instance, Wetter. So er, wetter has an er in the end, is a thing. So it's neuter. It's das Wetter, although it has an er. Or Verkäufer, which is not a thing, it's a person, so it's masculine. Same thing with the ending e. So let's take Hase, so rabbit. Does a rabbit have a specific set of female properties? No, so it's masculine. Then we have things like Tasse or Vene, which are vessels which hold something which is used for life or to keep up life. In a tasse you have something to eat or so forth, and blood vessels, and so you have in vene, blood vessels, you have blood, so you hold the liquid of life, and therefore feminine properties. And yeah, with the neuter there aren't any exceptions. Now the categories are pretty straightforward. If they're in the category, it is, else it isn't. There are a couple of more categories than the ones that I mentioned, but I say you can look them up, and I don't think it's really helpful to learn them in categories, but in the beginning, if you're not sure, you can look it up and so forth. So the name of a number or the name of a river, always feminine. Now, the last part here, the upper part, is that follows the same concept as explained previously. But for instance, all the livestock aren't things, but they are, or they were used as a thing. This is why Rind, Schaf, Pferd, Schwein are neuter. And this is even kept in the name. I mean, livestock sounds like, yeah, it's alive, but it's stuck is something that inventory. This is kept in the German word as well, which would be Vieh. So this is as well, it's We have the term dehumanizing for humans, but we don't have the term de-animalizing for, I say, for animals, but that's what's happened here with the language. And then in the end, we have the same property check again. So yeah, this should be a Gedankenstütze, not a general rule, because learning it like that, we are machines, so it's way easier to learn them and get a feel for it. But as a Gedankenstütze, so thought support, it could be helpful, let's say like that. So this was it for this segment. Let's switch to some, let's say, cultural stuff. As I presented the 10 million initiative and some corresponding facts regarding in relation to it in the last episode, I still had this in mind. And from the reading on Twitter and Reddit and so forth, I got the impression that the language kind of changed. And if the language starts to change, it's either because the setup changed or the mood changed. So I asked around, asked some friends and so forth, and I didn't really get an answer. Because mostly people don't really filter in that way or look at language in that way. So I didn't really expect to get an answer. But then I came across this post, and it got me thinking a little bit. So let's first read it in Swiss German. You have it here, the translation in English, so it should be easy. And then I make my actual case. Bin ich ein selbsthassender, rassistischer Sekundo? Ich bin in der Schweiz geboren, aber meine Eltern sind es nicht. Sie sind von Kroatien. Je länger, je mehr regen mich die Leute in Zürich auf. Vor allem die, die sich nicht in die Schweizer Kultur integrieren. Ich sehe jugendliche Sekundos, die anders sind als dort, wo ich jung war. Die wollen den Gangster raushängen, haben Brokkoli-Frisuren, teure Kleider und vielleicht kaufen sie oder mieten sie teure Autos. Haben ein gebrochenes Schweizerdeutsch mit albanisch oder anderer Herkunft, oder albanischem Einfluss und nennen sich Bro all paar Sekunden. Und das gilt natürlich auch für die Mädchen. Dann kommt es mir vor, als ob jede Person im Tram ihrer Sprache redet und ich höre fast kein mehr Schweizer oder Zürichdeutsch reden. Und was noch dazu kommt, ist, dass ich wahrscheinlich Ja wird wählen zu den 10 Millionen Initiativen von der SVP. Und daher habe ich angefangen, an meiner eigenen Herkunft und Zustand zu zweifeln. Habe ich mich zu einem selbsthassenden, rassistischen Sekundo gewandelt. And my answer to him would be, no, you're just Swiss. And all the statistics to actually support your perception. And the other thing is, I really dislike the term secondo. Because it is like newspeak. A secondo doesn't exist. It's the second generation of an immigrant. So you're either Swiss or you're a foreigner. But it doesn't make sense to differentiate between the first or second or third or 10th generation. You either are integrated, have a Swiss passport, or not. So differentiating that manner doesn't make sense. And the first thought I had was of the broccoli, haircut. Because I find it funny that because in El Salvador, they banned what they call the Edgar, which is basically the same. And it's the go-to haircut for wannabe gangsters, or in the case of El Salvador, actual gangsters. And if you're asking yourself, what does this have to do with anything? We are group or herd animals. So we dress and cut our hair and so forth accordingly to the group we want to belong to. So banning a specific haircut is like banning a specific symbol for a group. And there is way more to this. For instance, there is the Karen haircut. I don't know if you know the meme from Karen, the woman that always complains to the manager, or colored hair with colors which are in nature would represent toxicity. And this is usually a tell as well. Anyway, back to the topic. If we have a look at the crimes committed by foreigners from the last 40 years, we see this graph. And yeah, I couldn't find any other graph for the last 40 years. I actually searched for 40, not 40, 30, not 40, sorry. And the only thing I could find was from the SVP. So I'm sorry for that. I don't try to use political or sources from political parties, but I say to create all those graphs and so forth would take me hours, and therefore I have to copy it from somewhere. And yeah, if you have a look at this graph, we had a sharp increase from 84 to 92, which is related to Gastarbeiter. So foreigners we took in for work. And then we see a sharp drop. Why? Because the second generation grew up to be adults and start to actually assimilate. The same thing that happens to the Croatian guy, or I would call him Swiss with Croatian roots, from Reddit, because yeah, in the beginning you're I say everything is foreign and so forth, and I say in school you try to be the tough guy and so forth, and then you get released into the work life, and then you realize that you're just the same dummy like everyone else, and that's the point where people actually start to assimilate. And then we get the next increase, which would be from the Balkan Wars. Again, the increase till they are adults, and then it starts to flatten. Why flatten and not decrease is the reason he mentioned. It's from the named groups from the Balkan which refuse to assimilate. And as well the introduction of the Personenfreizügigkeit. So way more people from Europe started to come in, and I say that the need to assimilate got less and less. So you start to get communes of certain nationalities and so forth. Which brings me to the next one. I'm not sure if most people have seen this article, but I say it reads, with the number of foreigners we have in Switzerland, it would be considered a metric which would lead to the civil war or has led to civil wars in other countries. So yeah, I thought to myself, let's check if there is anything one could filter about the change of language, as I mentioned in the beginning, in regard to the situation where we are in. And I found something. It's called the Glasl model, and it's a 3x3 escalation model. Now, here is a summary. I haven't written it. This is just copy paste. And so I will not go through all of the steps and so forth. It's just, if you want to know them or know them specifically, just pause the video and read them or Google it or so forth. There's a lot of information in the internet. I just needed a metric. And here we have an example of those steps, or what those steps would look like. Again, I will not get, and again, copied. This is copy paste. And I will not get into all of them. I simply use them as a metric to see how near we are to a conflict, or how bad it actually is. And if you look to the SRF, or how the SRF treats Maßvoll, we see that they try to give labels to the group and associate them with it. And keep in mind, Maßvoll is a party which contains everything. They have Muslims and people with roots from other countries and so forth. They are libertarian, so they are slight right wing, but they can't really put in or be put in the right wing sector because they have differences with the SVP and so forth. So in the text we have actually two parts, or yeah, two parts which stand out. One is zu einem Akteur in der rechtsextremen Szene gewandelt. So they mutated to an actor in the right-wing extremist scene. And the last part is, wie nahe maßvoll an dieses Milieu herangerückt ist. So how near maßvoll got to this milieu. And yeah, as I said, they are I say a mixed pot of people, so they can't really be right wing extremists and so forth. And again, I said this in other in other episodes. What does right wing extremist even mean? Because in my understanding, an extremist would somebody be who uses actions, so he actually hurts somebody or does something in that case. But they are a political party. They don't hurt anyone or so forth, so they can't really be extremist. They don't do destruction or property destruction, vandalism, and so forth. So I'm not sure what this extremist even should mean, because it's just a slanderous term. And yeah, if we put this in context, it seems to me that they are on step 4 or stage 4, which is the transition where the talking to each other actually stops. So if they continue with this, the next parts will be actions, which actually already started because like the Green Party tried to block their demos, and yeah, this is a demo is the or should be the fundamental right in a democracy, that you can go out and let your frustration out. If you block that, you take out the possibility to actually deflate the situation. Now let's go to the actual right-wing part, which would be the Junge Thought. And here we have a look how the SP, so the political party, the left, is actually talking about them. Now, the Junge Thought is an actual right-wing group, or in political terms, as right-wing as it gets. They aren't extreme. Again, what does extreme even mean? They're just they're the most right-wing that we have in a political sense right now. They sometimes do actions like put up flyers or banners and stuff like that, but they never hurt anyone. They don't do vandalism and so forth. And this is kind of shocking how the SP talks about them, because if you put that in the stage, they're already at stage 7. The thing is that, as I said, they don't really call for violence or anything similar. And here I'm not even sure if this shouldn't be, or they should actually be able to sue them, because this is slander. This is not, this is not normal discourse or so on. Because, I mean, terms like Ideologie ethnischer Säuberung, so the ideology of ethnical cleansing. I mean, that's what the Nazis did and so forth. So they tried to completely dehumanize them. And then even further, they have that audacity to say that they have vordergründige, harmlose Kommunikationsstrategie, which is as sanitized as it gets. I mean, this is... Somebody isn't, calling for violence or calling for anything extreme, but they simply said, yeah, and up front, it's harmless. It's a harmless communication which they have, but this is not true. So what's the truth? The SP simply does like the truth is what we say about them and not what they say themselves. So what is going on here? And you see that it's always with those negative terms. It's fremdenfeindlich, it's Säuberung, it's staatsfeindlich. Deutliche Anzeichen für Gewaltbereitschaft, so willingness to do violence. Then the right-wing extreme, and so forth. So yeah, this is really bad and as Orwellian as it gets. Now let's switch to the other side. So what are people or like the regular person or regular in quotes regular person start to use, or which language start to use? That's the point that I actually recognized. And I paraphrased those sentences because I don't want to dox anyone or to make any connection to people and so forth. So it shouldn't be traceable. So I would say that here we are somewhere in between 5 and 6. So we have the use of Verräter, so traitor. So the Bundesrat and some people from the parliament and so forth were already being called Verräter. We have the start of the either-or rhetoric. So, wenn nicht endlich was passiert, muss man es anders lösen. So, if finally not something starts to change, we have to solve it with other methods. Sie hassen uns und gehören dementsprechend behandelt. They hate us and they should be treated in a certain manner. Ich will den Dreck nicht in der Schweiz. I don't want this dirt in Switzerland, which dirt is the person, so it's really it's dehumanizing. And then we start to have actions like this. I don't know if you have seen it in the 20 minutes and so forth, where it's like, yeah, foreigners stay quiet. So yeah, this isn't the best outlook for the coming years if not something fundamentally changed. So this was it for today. I hope it wasn't too grim or pessimistic, but I just give out my thoughts, how I says it as I sees it. And if you have any questions, write them in the post questions with the current date in the sub or Schweizerdeutsch, and I'll incorporate them into the next episode. With that being said, ciao zusammen, habt Sorge und eine schöne Zeit.